You're listening to the Sales Today podcast, and I'm your host, Fred Copestake. On this podcast, we explore how sales professionals can develop a more modern approach to selling, the application of virtual and hybrid selling techniques, how to create meaningful business relationships, and much more. And welcome to this episode of the Sales Today podcast, where I'm delighted to be joined by Antoine Marsden. Hi, Anton.
Yeah. Hi.
Anton is the co-founder of Sales Driven, which is an outbound sales development agency. That's lead gen then, isn't it, Antoine?
No.
Oh.
I like the framing there.
God, we were chatting just off air a little bit, the difference. I think it's quite important to explain.
Yeah. So typically lead generation agencies are right at the tip of the spear with either email campaigns or calling campaigns to generate meetings for customers or for clients. What we're doing is also taking care of the nurturing phase. So if you think about the typical market, size of the market that most companies are going after, if you think about the 3%, 7%, and then 10 and 30%, there's a lot of organizations that are not ready to buy. There's a lot of people that aren't ready to buy from organizations right now. And then what happens is that they just get missed, or there's like a sequencing or cadence put in front of them in order to reach out to that company at another time. But there's a whole opportunity to educate, to draw closer to your brand, to be synonymous with being a leader in the space that is being missed by not having an extensive nurturing campaign, which is what we facilitate as part of the outbound sales development. So it's the meetings is the final part of it that you want to get to, but what is the work being done in between to ensure that your prospective customer understands exactly who you are, how you can help, has been speaking with a peer group, a user group, and then by the time it does come to them having a meeting, it's a much more impactful and powerful meeting for both parties.
Yeah, and so yeah, my first question was a bit naughty, but it's interesting because you were telling me that your own background is as a full cycle sales professional.
Yeah,
So
correct.
that is something that for you is natural to have done all of that anyway. Correct.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. And so you're kind of bringing that to the party and saying, well, okay, we got that stuff and that stuff. Well, let's just, play around with it a little bit, so adapt that a little bit to make sure we can do, quite unique. I mean, are there other people who are offering this as well?
Not that I know of. There might be some elements of it that, kind of chop and change, but essentially from where we've come from and like you mentioned, people saying, oh, you're a lead generation company. Yeah. I mean, we manage the whole tip of the spear. So yeah, we can develop the data and we can find you the data. That's something that's fine. But we can also develop campaigns. We can run campaigns via outbound calling and via emails, via account-based selling, or we can then develop opportunities around both digital and physical events. So it's about giving your potential buyers and prospects avenues to be able to learn more about you than just a telephone call or an email that they can very easily dismiss.
Yeah. No. And so now thinking about, why particularly I want to speak to you anyway about loads of different stuff, but there was one particular post you put out on LinkedIn about characteristics of an elite SDR.
Yeah.
Is what you're saying here, that's the kind of things that an elite SDR would be doing. They're warming up, they're nurturing, they're moving the whole thing forward rather than going, oh, let's get a day in the diary.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that most elite SDRs are very aware of their numbers, right? And they're very aware of how many people that they're likely to reach out and impact that are ready to take a meeting or willing to take a meeting now. Doesn't matter. You can have the best approach, the best framework, the best scripts in the world. You're still never going to convert 100% of people that you speak to when you get on the phone to them. So it's understanding, okay, great. Well, everybody in this list, I should be able to help in some way if they have the problem that I can fix. If they do, but they're not yet ready to buy from me, how do I ensure that I stay in front of mine without just sending a random email every couple of months saying, hey, we spoke 2 months ago. Are you ready to buy yet? Right. We want to give, potential customers an opportunity to be invited to learn exactly how an outside organization that they've never heard of, that, that are talking about a problem that they're maybe only just becoming aware of, and then how that's going to impact them as they move through their day to day, not just from a business perspective, but from their own personal perspective as well.
Brilliant. I'm just going to jump in here and say, because I know quite a lot of the audience probably don't or might not know what SDR is, sales development representative,
Yeah.
who are trying to set up an account exec to take on the next part of the sale. That might be quite alien to a lot of people who think, hey, got people are setting up meetings for me. And I goes, yeah. So people running full cycle will go, I want some of them.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's quite peculiar in the SaaS space, isn't it? The software as a service space where
Right.
the industry loves that model, don't they?
Yeah, correct. I mean, I first read about it in Predictable Revenue, as the model that was, kind of set up within Salesforce. And um, I guess when I started hearing more and more about the term, I just found it very. But I guess we've got old school terms for that, haven't we? Openers and closers, right? If
Yeah,
you want to
yeah,
put it in as very simple terms as that, but you know, coming from full cycle myself and being the person responsible for setting up my own meetings and qualifying those meetings and not wasting my own time, there's a lot that I learned in those processes that I find very interesting to now how they're being split out into separate roles today.
yeah. So going back to this thing, and by the way, if you're listening, get following Antoine on LinkedIn now. He's put some great stuff out there.
Thank
No pressure. No, no, really are. But this one got me because you put here's the characteristics of an elite SDR. And my response was really simple. It's like, well, isn't that just an elite salesperson? You're like, yeah, in a nutshell. So I wanted to kind of look at that list because the list was great and just pick up
you.
on some of the things that that you said.
Yeah, sure.
Um, so one of them you said is an elite SDR, an elite salesperson, elite operator, let's call it that, is able to clearly articulate their unique selling points and executes a problem solving approach when prospecting.
Yeah.
Talk us through that a little bit.
Um, so I can paint a little story around this, I guess. So I don't know if you watch the GTM game spread, which is hosted by Justin Michael and Julia Limichinsky. Excellent for any salesperson to be watching and learning from. But I recently watched one of the games where they do the pitching contest. And that pitching contest was, um, you know, get on a pretend call to the judge and selling your wares. What I noticed from that one exercise is even the top companies in the world still now are approaching customers with a, hey, Fred, I'm so and so from X company. We're amazing and this is what we do. And it's like, that's, yeah, fine. A very old school approach to selling with your features and benefits and talking all about me, 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 me. But nobody likes to be wheedled, right? So when you go into a call as an elite seller, what you're looking for is to know that the person you're speaking to has a problem that you can solve. Because if they do not, then anything past that really is going to be a waste of both people's time. So are you getting somebody on the phone and leading with what the problems are for that personality or persona or ICB? And then from there, leading with that problem to understand how deep they are in that problem, if they're close to it, if they've seen it, or if it's something that they are absolutely dealing with right now. If so, that allows you from the outset to know that you're in the right conversation with a person who cares about this problem and is able to move forward from that point.
Yeah. It's in many ways, I think it's kind of obvious,
Mhm.
but you're right. So many people don't. And whether that's a training thing or whether it's just a self-centered thing, they think they're more interesting. But what most people are interested in themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Flip it like that, and
Exactly.
your conversation is going to get better. Sales about conversations anyway, isn't it? So
Exactly. Exactly.
cool. So problem-solving approach, understand what their problems are, their challenges. I think we need to be a bit brave on this, don't we? Because you kind of say, hey, Antoine, I think in your industry, this and this and this is going on.
Mhm. Exactly. It is a bit brave, but the way that I think it makes more sense is because we're not just having conversations, we're also understanding the landscape. We're speaking to people on a daily basis that are dealing with challenges. And it is us in this position of being the first point of outreach where we can really get that information in a way that doesn't come across as being nosy or pushy, because all it is presenting. I speak to a number of people like you who are telling me they have these problems. Are you seeing any of these in your world? If you are, great. If you're seeing a variation of it, cool. I'm interested in the variation. If you're not at all, amazing. What are you guys doing over there? Any one of those approaches opens up a conversation. Like, it just enables you to make sure that you're absolutely in the right place before taking it to the next stage.
Like you've just very elegantly said that there, I don't think you can lose.
No.
Because the other thing is that someone goes, "I'm not." Well, should I be? Oh, I'm not. What am I missing out here? Can you tell me
Exactly.
more about that? Well, yeah,
Yeah.
let me just ask a little bit more to just check. So you stimulate the discussion. You can't go into this without prep, though, can you?
No, no.
Got to understand their world.
Yeah, you have to. And this again comes down to what you're doing internally. If you're the conversations that you have on a daily basis and the information that you're collecting from those conversations, what are you doing with it? Are you taking notes? Is that going in your CRM? Are you building out your your ideal customer profile from those conversations that you're having, from the feedback that you're getting? Because that is the only way, along with understanding who buys and who doesn't buy, that is the only way to develop your ICP, so that all of the conversations that you have from your outreach are going to be as impactful as possible.
And so you're constantly refining that. So the more I learn, the more I start talking, the more I realize actually these are the people I'm working with best.
Mhm.
Well, this is how I'm going to go and target more.
Exactly.
It's always evolving. I
Yeah.
love that. Okay, we could just we could riff on this for the whole podcast, but I want to get through a couple more of these. So, um, you you talk about using multiple outreach sources, so across emails, calls, LinkedIn.
Mhm.
Again, can you elaborate a little bit on that point that we need to be doing?
Yeah. Because I imagine, and I've seen, oh, I'm going to email this person and I'm going to follow up with them on email and I'm going to shoot them another email, all of which don't get a response, which is not surprising because of the deluge of emails that people receive on a daily basis. So how are you maintaining contacts or outreach to that prospect? And so if you're not using LinkedIn, if you're not using the phone, if you're not using the email, if you're not using various other channels, social networks, any other media that you might be able to kind of find that person on, if you're not using that to show this person, hey, look, we're in the same spaces all the time. Funny seeing you here again. It's that familiarity. That familiarity breeds more likelihood of a conversation taking place, because you're not so much of a stranger now, right? You're that person that is always kind of in view, even if you're not directly in front of the person, which means that that familiarity just breeds more opportunity to actually have interesting conversations with your audience.
Yeah, and there is. Oh, I can't remember. I remember some studies around this that actually the different spaces. It's not just the constant and the amount. It is the different spaces has an effect on this. I think.
Yeah,
I,
absolutely.
I'm gonna try and look that
Absolutely.
up. I'm gonna try and look that up. Challenge myself on that one. Um, no, I like that. So again, all these tools are there, and if we're not using them, crazy,
Yeah,
really.
yeah, exactly.
Um, Actually, linked to this, I know it's not one that you necessarily put in the list. I've got it in front of me now. What about using video? Thoughts on that?
Again, whether it's using video, voice notes on LinkedIn, WhatsApp, voice notes, for example, it's the point of it is you need to try and understand how your prospects engage and where they engage best. Somebody that engages well on email and hates phone call versus somebody who engages well on LinkedIn versus email. You need to know this, because then that effectively enables you to have more consistent and better opportunities from the outreach that you're actually performing.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, this, because I hear voice notes, or hear somebody say use voice notes, and I'm thinking, good luck using that with me.
Yeah,
But listen to it, I like
exactly.
it. But that's my preference. So
Mhm.
that I've got to be careful not to then taint how I might do something just because I don't like it. If it
Yeah,
works for the other party, then hey, you cut off your nose to spite your face here.
exactly.
Get
Exactly.
used to it.
Exactly. And what's important is that if they've got Fred in their list of contacts that they're trying to reach out to, and they try you and they've put, okay, LinkedIn, oh, look, like he's responded to a message on LinkedIn. He responded to a call. He didn't respond to a voice note that I left him. He didn't respond to an email that I left him. Fred's favorite channels are these two.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and make sure that I'm in front of him in these channels at least. So it's more about, again, just kind of being more aware of not using just one form of outreach to reach somebody and then saying, oh, this form of outreach doesn't work, or this person doesn't ever respond, because there will be a way for them to respond. It's just that you haven't found it yet.
Love that. Love that. And keeping track of that step for channel.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so we're on LinkedIn. We're talking about that a little bit now.
Yeah.
So again, back to your list. Has personal branding and a following on LinkedIn? This is for the salesperson, right? So again, talk me through that point.
So I feel like we are in an age where it's very easy to do a quick recce on somebody that you're looking for, all right, or somebody you're looking to speak to. And most people don't ever do it. But I think that with the amount of calls that people get on a daily basis now, if somebody sends out a message and you're half interested in what that message is, then you'll go and look them up, right? So to have a voice or a presence on the platform which serves you best, whichever it is, could be TikTok for sales, it could be LinkedIn. But if you have a following of some description, or if you are putting out content of some description that showcases what you do, how you do it, the types of things that you see, your viewpoint on XYZ strategy, or this is what I've seen as an SDR, that gives a lot more credibility straight away, and also kind of builds an element of trust in this person is vulnerable and confident enough at the same time to display what they're doing and how they're doing it. And that gives me confidence that if I speak to this person, I'm going to have a conversation with somebody who is not going to, kind of just give me either some nonsense or not be at least articulate enough to really kind of show me the value behind the proposition.
Whoa, you've hit so much on there. So I want to underline quite a lot of stuff here. So vulnerable and confident, but also articulate enough to be able to get the stuff across, stuff which I'm already starting to think is interesting because they've given me a little bit of insight about how they do stuff. Biggest word that I think you said there is a viewpoint.
Yeah.
Salespeople should have a viewpoint. Let's just talk about that a little bit more.
So I think, I think that salespeople are very good at illuminating something from their own perspective. And so to be able to showcase what their day-to-day looks like, the types of conversations that they have and how they approach those conversations or those difficulties or those challenges, enable somebody outside who can be their potential buyer to say, oh, wow, okay, there's a lot of insight there from just a couple of posts about this person. I now feel like from the way that they've written something or the way that they've portrayed something, that I now have a better understanding of how this person comes across if I'm to have a conversation with them, or how what they've said about this actually answers a question that I had in my mind, or how I didn't think about that thing that they've just mentioned, but actually that's now raised a few questions of my own. And to be able to create that for somebody that you've never met that potentially could buy from you is very powerful.
Basically, you just said the customers are qualifying salespeople.
Yeah.
No, but they are, aren't they? And what you're saying there, so this person, I can see nothing about them. I could potentially be wasting my time here. I haven't got enough time to waste, but I like the cut, the jib. I like the way that they seem to be going about doing their business. They're solving this stuff on a regular basis. They're going to have stuff that I need, I want to use for myself. It's got to be worth a punt, hasn't it?
Yep.
Which then for me sounds like that material, that stuff, the content that they're going to produce isn't that difficult. It's literally what you did yesterday, almost.
That is literally it. I think that there seems to be this thing on LinkedIn with people posting content for likes and for engagement of shares, and however you want to use it, that's fine. But I often think that if somebody comes across my content, what can they take from it? If they're an SDR and they're thinking, Jesus Christ, yesterday was so hard, I had 0 conversations. Okay, how'd you pick yourself up to go again the next day? Or I'm having so much trouble with this list that I've produced, I'm not getting anywhere with it. Okay, let's look at this building and how that can potentially help and the types of things that you might not be thinking about. And I just feel that if I'm able to at least give people that basis or that level of learning that I've had to go through, and they can get it in a very, bite-sized chunks to say, oh, okay, cool. Like I can actually readily implement this, or I needed that. I didn't like, I was struggling with this yesterday. That's kind of cleared it up for me today. Then that's hugely impactful and valuable as far as I'm concerned. And then that's why I write on LinkedIn.
So that's a little bit like your check question before you press send. What can they take from it?
Yeah.
Is this going to be valuable? So are they going to take something?
Yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot. Do you do any just pure engagement posts? Cat pics, I call them, because in my case they're cat pics. So to be fair, the cat is usually sat on one of my books. So let's take a dreamy inside it. There's the trick.
I think I did one. I think I did one on a weekend. Easter.
Oh no, then I'm
Yeah.
going to grow another that, Fred.
Yeah. but no, most of the content that I write is if I don't feel that it's going to be something that someone's going to be able to use or be impacted by or find valuable, then I'm not going to put it out.
And so joking apart, then this is, for me, is a really great approach to this, because what you're saying is I'm not too worried about the likes and engagements, which if I can paraphrase it, it's like I'd prefer to have 20 likes from 20 people who've genuinely thought that has helped me. You've given me a bit of a boost. You've given me a technique. I took something from it. Then yeah, that's nice. Yeah. No, I like that. And so thinking about personal brand, then that's how you're building your personal brand. I'm taking it is that you're the kind of person that is there to help people, that understands their craft, understands their trade, will share this stuff, will help them. But equally, that's what we do, the way we work. So, pretty safe hands, because we practice all what we preach.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, if people come across my content and they speak with me, they're going to find the way that I speak is the way that I write, and what I talk about is what I do. So whatever conversation they want to have with me on sales outreach, sales development, creating events, creating unique experiences where companies will be more interested in having conversations, then that's my sweet spot. That's what I've been doing throughout my career. But I think that it's very easy to, I'm not a big social media person because I think it takes a lot of energy. But that the energy that I put into LinkedIn, I feel is valuable because I know when I started my career, to be able to have more people that I could look to for valuable information would have potentially helped accelerate my career. But also I believe that there's almost this weird thing, right? It's almost like if I see like a Marcus post, or if I see an Alex Elaine post, or if I see some of these guys that are consistently putting out very provoking and valuable content, and it's almost like it's reassurance. It's reassurance that you've got a very quick and easy way to go and get the information that you need from somebody that you trust, because you've seen that the information that they're developing is helping people, especially when you go into the comments threads and you read more in the comments and you understand, wow, like that post impacting people has made a difference. And actually I can use this and this can be valuable for me. So, I think that LinkedIn done the right way and not just used as a platform to shout about, my selfies or how great I am. It's what it needs to kind of, move business forward and push networking and empowering people to do better and do more. I think that's what it's for.
I do put selfies, but equally, I do want to try and make a difference. I like try and produce stuff on a whole load of other things. Marcus Kauke.
Marcus Kauke.
Yeah. Marcus produced some excellent stuff. I mean, he really does make you stop and think sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, probably, whoa. Yeah.
I'm rating everything that I'm doing.
Yeah. Everything you plan to do for the day as well. So.
Exactly.
How do I phrase this next question? Okay, no, I'm not going to do the nasty version. I'll tell you what I was going to ask. It's like, what are you reading at the moment?
Oh, it's a good question. So I'm reading The Qualified Sales Manager. So
Ah,
it was a book that was recommended to me by a client. Um, and it's basically, it's a really interesting book about how to effectively manage your sales managers and how to coach them and guide them as to what they need to look for in order to make their team members accountable. So when it comes to either forecasting your numbers or how you qualify your actual opportunities, how you need to do that in a way that firstly promotes a absolutely clear cut forecast that is not made up of nonsense and hopes and dreams. But then also how to ask the right questions of your team so that they understand that the opportunity has been qualified correctly and can be put forward for forecast.
brilliant. Who wrote that?
That question I'll have to come back to.
No, that's fine. We'll pop a link in chat. That sounds good.
Yeah.
I want to have a look at that. Now, and the reason I'm asking the question
Yeah.
is that you put on your post
Yeah.
is that the elite performer, elite SDR, elite A, elite salesperson constantly reads and invests in self-learning.
100%.
So yeah, again, talk us through a little bit more. Like, I mean, you're reading, you just told us what, what.
Yeah. So I've always been somebody that kind of dips in and out of reading, but realized when starting my own business that I don't have a huge network of people that have set up and run their own businesses to be able to kind of go get that guidance from. Now you could be a demon on somewhere like LinkedIn and obviously find people and ask them for their time. Or you can pick up a book. So I've read loads of books since starting Sales Driven on whether it's business principles, whether it's, kind of management, whether it is forecasting. There's tons and tons of books that I've read. And I think that it's a very quick way to accelerate your knowledge in an area that you don't understand. But then working with my business partner, it's also about, okay, what from the book has really impacted you? And then how are you going to implement it into your working day or into your working processes? And that's been the biggest takeaway for me okay, this book definitely has some great ideas. There are things that we can use, but now let's use them. And now let's actually put them into practice and see what actually, comes from that. So, and then in terms of the investment, so I, th- when I was, I think when I was an employee, and I would know that you see some people get access to training and some people wouldn't get access to training. Why is that? Never quite so clear. But sometimes you'd be in those groups where you're getting trained, sometimes you're not. And then I thought to myself, okay, well, how can I ask my companies to give me more training or more coaching? Um, And then oftentimes I would get you need to do this and then you can get into the next group, or you need to do this, or you need to do this, which made me think to myself, well, if I just do it for myself, then I don't need to do anything apart from get the training that I need and turn up and get it done and then implement it. And then I'll bring that back to the office and then I can tell them my improvements have been through my own efforts. And so I think that most people tend to believe that they need their company to provide them with the opportunities to learn, where actually I believe that you need to go out and learn. And then if you are able to show to your company that these are things that you're already doing, it becomes much more attractive to invest in that person because they can see how much they're investing in themselves. And that shows that that person wants to go above and beyond to improve, as opposed to just staying in the same place and making very, very small improvements over X amount of time.
I love that. Again, lots of stuff you've just been talking about. I just want to underline a little bit. Yeah, take the information on board, but implementation.
Yeah.
And you've got that sounding board. You talk to your partner and say, hey, look, how are we going to make this stuff work? What's going to put this into the way we operate? Consistent. I always talk about it's implementation, not information. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that interesting, that company versus self way of investing in yourself, in the way you learn.
Mhm.
Have you ever come across people that the company is investing in? They want to get them better. They're putting the training on. They're giving them access to all these resources to get better. They don't want it.
Yes.
They spurn it. They push it back.
I have to. Yeah.
How do you respond to people like this?
I think, I mean, obviously you can't, you can lead a horse to water, but I always think that it's, it's always very insightful. If you have been put into a program that is there to enable you to develop further, and you don't want to take that information, which maybe says to me that you're in your comfort zone and you don't want to become uncomfortable, because either you're going to get more pressure to do more or have to perform at a higher level because you're being put into that scenario,
Mm.
and you want to kind of retreat from that and protect yourself because you know that you operate just fine in that kind of little kind of square that you're in right now, and you don't need to go out of that to you know, to perform at the level that you've been performing at. But there's a level of potentially, um I think, it's putting yourself out into the, you know, just an uncomfortable situation. Whereas whenever I've paid for my own trading, the uncomfortability has been around not attending, because there's a pain to the fact that I've spent my own money to go and do something and I haven't gone and done it. So I will never let myself pay for or invest in a training that I don't then go and attend, because that's, you know, I guess that's me attributing that to myself as a pain and as a disappointment. Whereas when a company is paying for it, some people have the tendency to just say, okay, well, I don't really care. It's not really that big a deal if I get something out of it or not.
I thought you were quite benevolent on the way you describe people who are like, using the horse analogy, looking a gift horse in the mouth. But
Yeah.
no, but I also I came across this brilliant expression a little bit back, which is if you pay attention.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I don't know which one you said, isn't it?
yeah, yeah,
Um, Okie dokie. So again, I mean, this is linked into the learning piece and self-development, make yourself better, I guess. I don't know. I'm gonna ask you the question. You've put that again, elite operators, elite performers, they journal their process and experience daily. Okay, I'm interested in that.
yeah. So especially since becoming a business owner, so I had one business before this, and then starting sales driven, and my business partner and I, we're very focused on trying to capture the detail of what we've been putting together and how we've been building it. Um, and I realized that actually, um, I've always been very good at kind of documenting and describing things in my process. So whether that would be through, um, kind of being a sales manager and kind of documenting my process of, you know, working with one of my team, or if it would document a process of how I'd grow, um, you know, one part of the portfolio, for example, I was pretty good with that. And what that then teaches you is when you look back, you can say, okay, I did this, and this was a misstep. This was a misstep. You can avoid that for the next time you have to run that. So there's this whole cycle of continuous improvement that comes about from your own experiences and your own activities, that if you are journaling and documenting this, can only help you improve, because you say to yourself, it's like when you look back, right? It's when you look back at maybe your first LinkedIn post, right? Or your first pitch that you created, and you'll cringe, but oh, that sounds so bad. But where you are now,
Mm.
it's a huge, huge, huge way from there, because that enabled your learning in the first place. And if you've got a ton of that stuff to look back on and say, okay, I've seen situations similar to this now, actually, this is how I managed this before. This is how I could improve in this situation moving forward. It just enables you to be much more aware of yourself, of how to manage the opportunities that come your way. And if you're going to come up to, you know, if you're going to come across any situations that you've dealt with before, that you'll be able to deal with better as you move forward.
And no, this is really cool. And so the journaling,
Mm.
if I'm understanding right, isn't as much as to, oh, I've got a book on the shelf from 3 years ago. I can go and I can look at what I did then.
Mhm.
It's by doing that. Do you do it at the end of the day then?
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah. So it's just processing the stuff that you've done, and because of the processing it, the brain is then kind of grabbing the bits which are important, and now that's kind of there. It's available for you to use in
That's
the
it.
future.
That's it. Yeah. It's almost like that kind of recall information button, right? And it's that memory of writing it. It's knowing that this So I can point back to projects that I've worked on, campaigns that I've worked on, days on those campaigns where it was tough and things didn't go the way that we expected, or it was great and things completely surpassed what we expected. Well, I can remember the feelings from writing that, and I can remember the instances in those pieces that mean that if I come across a situation like that again, I'm going to be much more savvy in how to deal with it. But also, again, coming back to LinkedIn piece, it's something that I've got experience in and I can talk about, and that's going to resonate with people that are either in that position or have dealt with something similar.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. Oh, so much good stuff. I've only hit on a few of the points on there, but I do have an eye on the clock. So I think you might have covered some of this, but I just want to make sure. Yeah, I'm
Mm.
going to do the old time travel question.
Okay.
If you could sort of travel back in time,
Mhm.
meet 20-year-old Antoine,
Yeah.
what advice would you give yourself, your 20-year-old self starting out?
Is this in sales or is this just myself?
Well, generally, you got both. However you want to answer.
Really? Yeah. So I think from a sales perspective, it would have been the classic from Marcus, which is detach from the outcome. I think that as a young salesman, the scarcity mentality may have been in play a little bit, and you hold on to things that you don't need to hold on to because of fear of not reading the deal. But actually, you just need to get out there and speak to as many people as you can and build your pipeline and let that do the talking. Um,
So
and that-
just if people haven't heard the detach from the outcome advice before, what does that actually mean?
so rather than going onto the call and wanting a meeting from every call, go into a call without any assumptions. So for me, it then became about what kind of conversation can I have today? What types of things can I learn today from people? And then that automatically changes the scope of I need to get a meeting, I need to get a meeting to I uncovered so much information and just happened to book a bunch of meetings as a result as well. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the advice I was giving to a sales guy. As a person, maybe that's an interesting one. Maybe don't chase money, chase learning.
Mm.
And the reason I say that is I've been in a position where I've chased money, and it comes with a whole load of caveats that weren't particularly good for me, and that I didn't particularly enjoy. Whereas if you are chasing learning, then whichever part of your role that you're in or whatever you're looking to move on to, if you're chasing the learning, then effectively you can become an excellent operator in that space. And that means that the money follows. So I think that the experiences for me that I've learned is number one, trust your gut. And number two, don't chase the money, chase learning.
I love that. I think we have a podcast title. Um, well, because it also kind of reflects into some of the stuff you're talking about with the very first question, which is, problem prospecting.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
this has been really cool. I could ask so many more questions, but, look, you've already explained you're gonna put so much information out there.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
all pressure again. So best place for people to contact or to get in touch is via LinkedIn or
Yeah. Via
uh,
LinkedIn.
other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
All details on LinkedIn as well. So drop me a direct message or comment on one of my posts or whatever the case may be. But I'm easily contactable that way.
Send your video, voice note,
Video?
WhatsApp.
Well, no. Yeah. What? Yeah. If you got the number.
Oh, good luck with that one. Anton, brilliant. I'll pop link to your LinkedIn profile into the thing. That is so cool. Thank you so much for
Awesome.
coming on.
Thanks
Really do
for coming on,
appreciate
Brett.
it.
No,
It's a pleasure.
cheers.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Today podcast with me, Fred Copestake. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe for more and leave a review. If you didn't like it, also leave a review. It's all about feedback and learning.